Welcome to Marshall, Texas. This town's been around since 1844. That was a long time ago, and a lot has happened over the years. Fortunately, there are people who help preserve our history. One was Miss Rebecca Buard. She was a teacher, an author, a civic leader, and historian.
What I remember most about my grandmother is the way she would gather people together to work together for a common goal.
Rebecca Buard led a project to document African American history in Marshall. She recorded the stories of people and put them in a collection of books alongside photos and important dates.
Today we have the Buard History Trail named in her honor.
The trail features African American people and places that made important contributions to our city, state, and nation. Join us as we step back into Marshall's history and learn more about them.
We're from Marshall, Texas.
In the 1870s, many people around Marshall worked on farms, in mills, and on the railroad.
My grandfather was a boilermaker. He worked there for 47 years.
Marshall became the headquarters of the Texas and Pacific Railway. Everybody called it the T&P. The T&P soon had large shops where they made railroad cars and steam engines and other equipment.
They had Janakios down there, cafe, and all the buildings were occupied. It was a hotel. People came through from everywhere. Some stopped and stayed, some went on.
Many people in Marshall worked to build and operate the railroad all the way to San Diego, California. Have you ever heard of David Abner?
David Abner was a fascinating person, like so many of the African American leaders we have from this community.
Although he was born into slavery, Abner became a successful farmer after the Civil War.
So David Abner became a major landowner in Harrison County. He worked and saved his money.
He helped to organize Bethesda Baptist Church and became one of its first deacons. Plus, he helped establish Bishop College in Marshall in 1881. In 1873, Wiley College was established in Marshall and opened its doors to African American students.
Wiley College is my school. I'm very proud to say that I graduated there in 1953. In those college days, it was a village. It wasn't when somebody just came in to do a job. You were almost like their children. Wiley has had an impact on Marshall, Texas, more than what I think they realize.
It was the first black college in Texas and remains today the oldest historically black college west of the Mississippi River.
Bishop College and Wiley College were important throughout Marshall's history. The first African American president of Wiley College was Matthew Dogan. He lived in a beautiful house called the President's Home, built in 1905. The current president of Wiley, Dr. Haywood Strickland, lives in the home today. In 1907, Professor Dogan raised money to build Marshall's first public library, the Carnegie Library. It's now the administration building for Wiley College.
This is Bethesda Church. It's one of the oldest churches in Marshall.
During this time, families were growing and the way people lived was changing.
Many people in Marshall focused on faith, education, and improving their community.
In 1895, a man named H.B. Pemberton organized the first public high school in Marshall for African Americans, Central High. It was considered one of the best high schools in Texas. Central High was later renamed Pemberton High in honor of its founder. Also, many elementary schools were formed during this time. They included Park School and Newtown Elementary School. And you can't have a community without taking care of people who are ill. In 1925, Dr. James Shepherd built Shepherd Hospital. There was also the T&P Hospital, which served all their employees.
During the 1930s, Wiley and Bishop were really going strong. One of the teachers at Wiley was Melvin Tolson. He was a distinguished poet and professor.
He was always outspoken. When he talked, everybody would listen.
While Professor Tolson was at Wiley, he coached the debate team. In 1935, the Wiley debate team won the national championship. This was the first time a black college won the championship. There's even a Hollywood movie about it called The Great Debaters.
Resolved. Negroes should be admitted.
Part of the movie was filmed right here in Marshall.
Resolved. Negroes should be admitted to state universities.
Welcome to the courthouse. One of the members of the debate team was James Farmer Jr. Born in Marshall, James Farmer Jr. was one of the great political leaders of his time. He founded the Congress of Racial Equality, a group that would go on to be very influential. In 1941, World War II began. The Tuskegee Airmen were the first African American pilots to serve the country. They overcame segregation and prejudice to become one of the most highly respected fighter groups of the war. 4 Tuskegee Airmen were from right here in Marshall, Texas. Mac Hopkins, Fred Weathersby, Charlie Johnson, and Romeo Williams.
In those cemeteries, there's a lot of memory. A lot of our great professionals and friends and others are buried there. And Powder Mill is very well kept. That's a part of one of Mrs. Buard's ideas. The county came in to help her clean it off, and it's all fenced in. Those are some historical sites in our city.
In those days, racial discrimination was legal for businesses like restaurants and movie theaters. They will often discriminate based on the color of your skin. Lots of people knew that segregation and discrimination were wrong, but many people in power didn't want to change things. So young students throughout the South came up with their own ways of changing the world. They started organizing protests. One style of protest was called a sit-in. A sit-in was where black people would sit down at whites-only places to eat and refuse to leave. March 30th, 1960. Wiley and Bishop students occupied the lunch counters on the square. It was one of the largest sit-ins in Texas, with more than 80 students participating. Sit-ins like the one in Marshall helped change the laws of the entire country. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, making it illegal for businesses to discriminate based on race.
It's very interesting that 4 Marshallites played not just a role, a prominent role in getting the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 signed. 2 white, 2 black. The most prominent was probably Lady Bird Johnson, who was considered by everybody Lyndon's most important sounding board. The next most important had to be James Farmer, the founder of CORE. The third one, historians generally call the son that Lyndon never had, and that was Bill Moyers, who was a journalist from here, who was Lyndon's chief of staff, who wrote the speech that Johnson delivered, the one that ends, "And we shall overcome." The fourth one is not that well known, but was very important. Her name was Zephyr Wright. She was Johnson's cook. Johnson would say, "Do you know that my cook and her husband drive in the vice president's Cadillac, and there's no place for them to go to the bathroom. They have to pull over on the side of the road and pee. They have no place to eat when they go through your state. Now, you know her, and she's educated, and you know that's not right.
Soon, the public schools were integrated. It wasn't easy for the first students and teachers, but they did what had to be done.
I'm Percy Hall, Jr. I was born in Marshall, October 2nd, 1941. We're at downtown Marshall at the Paramount Theater. This was a white-only entrance. On the backside, right behind this clothing store, was an entry for blacks. Inside, you went upstairs. They couldn't get upstairs, and you couldn't get downstairs. So the only way into that lobby was if you worked there. They had some doors behind the ticket booth. It was during the time of the sit-ins all over the United States. We decided, well, we're going to come and integrate the Paramount. You had black and white water fountains everywhere. You had black and white restrooms, even in the courthouse. It was a way of life, you know, and if one wanted to go to the theater, you had to deal with that. You know, and your parents didn't want you causing any waves because most of them worked for the people that were, you know, running the town, running the city. So we came down and they sold us a ticket. We went inside and we saw the picture, and after that, I don't think I ever went back again. But we were the first. It was a long time before I got used to watching movies downstairs. I didn't feel any hatred or anything. I just always wondered why.
The Buard History Trail allows us to see some of the places where Marshall's African American history happened. It helps us learn about what life was like for people in the past and the challenges they faced. Most of the people celebrated by the Buard History Trail lived and died many years ago. Many of the buildings on the trail are no longer here, too. And of the ones still here, some are in bad condition. But the stories of what the people of the Buard History Trail accomplished will never die. History is what came before us. It is a story of the people and the events that made us what we are today. We can help to keep our history alive by studying and celebrating it. The Buard History Trail is just one of the many ways we can do this. The people and places and events honored by the Buard History Trail helped make the world we live in, and Marshall, Texas, a better place. Thanks to Miss Rebecca Buard, we know a little something about those people, places, and events.
Maybe we all should follow her example.
Let's learn all we can about who we are and where we came from. And let's be proud to share it with others.
I'm proud to know my history.
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 We're proud to know our history.